What if the clarity you're seeking isn't out there, but already within you, waiting for you to listen? Welcome to Personal Development Mastery, the podcast that helps intelligent, busy professionals develop self-mastery and gain clarity, so you can thrive in a fulfilling, purposeful life. I'm your host, Agi Keramidas, and this is episode 516. If you are looking to manage stress more effectively and boost your daily energy, this conversation with breathwork expert Tim van der Vliet explores how breathwork and cold exposure can become simple, powerful tools for long-term transformation. By listening today, you are going to discover 3 powerful ways to use breathwork for immediate calm, daily resilience, and deep transformation. And you will learn how just 5 minutes a day can radically improve your long-term health, reduce stress, and even boost longevity. If you are feeling overwhelmed by daily stress or searching for a practical wellness routine that fits into a busy life, then this episode is for you. Before we dive in, if what you hear resonates with you and you're curious to go deeper in breathwork, not just for yourself, but maybe even to guide others, Tim runs a breathwork instructor program. It's rooted in simplicity, safety, and science, and it is for anyone who wants to build an effective breathwork practice or even make it part of their professional path. You will find the link in the show notes. Now let's get started. Today I am thrilled to welcome Tim van der Vliet back to the show. Tim, our first conversation was 3 years ago, and that was episode 208, where we explored breathwork as a key to happiness and resilience. And, today I will only give a very, very brief introduction of you to the listener, just for reference. And I will only say that you are a breathwork and cold exposure specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And you are passionate about teaching others how to harness the power of their breath and the power of the cold to unlock incredible energy and health in them. So, Tim, welcome back to the show. It's a real pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Agi. It's a real pleasure to be here.
It's been 3 years, as I said, but I still remember our previous conversation. And as I was telling you earlier, before we started recording, I still have, out of that conversation, I have picked one routine that I have been following almost every day for over 3 years now. So it's been, and I think that is for me. And tell me if you agree. Personal development consists of these small actions that you repeat over and over again, and they build incrementally what we do, how we grow, how we live. So I don't know if that's how you see it.
Exactly, and I love mathematics. I used to be a stock market trader, and I still have a love for mathematics. And it's a simple, mathematical equation that if you grow 0.1% every day, which is like almost nothing, right? Then you grow 50% in a year, and in 5 years' time, 600%. So that's what like breathwork can be very difficult, and I make it very applicable. So if you would do just 5 minutes of breathwork every morning, and you stick to 5 minutes, which is so little that there's no reason not to do it, then you will see immense growth in the long term.
That's great. And today, breathwork, since you mentioned it, will be definitely our main topic of the conversation. And there are some very specific and particular elements and benefits of it which I want to discuss. And actually, let's start with that straight away. And I will ask you something more of a practical nature
Hmm.
rather than going into the theory of how breath retention affects our brain. So the practical question in this high stress world that many of us live, and probably the listener also
Hmm.
is, how can we use breath work to calm the nervous system, but on demand when the stress really hits us and we need to deal with it? Maybe it can be in work environment. Usually it's like
Hmm.
that, but not necessarily. So how can we use breath work in such a situation?
Let me start with explaining how you can use breath work, and this what you're asking is the number one. So in three ways.
Hmm.
Number one is to calm down immediately at work, in the car, listening to somebody, and you feel you want to cut in, things like that, like calm down at command. Number two is to have some form of practice. I say minimum of 5 minutes, but it can be longer. Some techniques are proposing 20 minutes or 40 minutes, but like 5 minutes of breathing exercises every day. And then number three are like longer sessions. I have a lot of like American clients, and over Zoom, I guide them through 45 minutes of breath work. Now, number one is instant stress relief. I call it crisis management. I need to calm
Hmm.
down now. What do I do? Number two is to have some form of practice that creates more breath awareness, more air available through the air, and being more calm generally. And number three is like really having a stagging effect. Like if you do a longer breathwork session with me, it is between 24 and 72 hours, you feel different. So these are the three ways you can use breathwork in general. And
Hmm.
mostly when we
Hmm.
see breath work, on Instagram, it's all about these longer sessions. And my 2 cents in is if you do 5 minutes of breath work in the morning and you practice this every day for a few years, you have more change than going to a longer session once a month. Now let's go into calming down at command.
Hmm.
There's two techniques that I like to share, and this is like an example of where breath work doesn't have to take very long. So number one is to get over a panic attack. I've, as you know, and you've been there too, but I've been putting people in ice bath for about 10 years. So I think the count is at 10,000 people. And I've seen a lot of people panic in that ice bath. And to get over a panic attack is to simply breathe in deep, to hold for 2 seconds, and then breathe out twice as long. We're going to practice in a bit of time. Um, why this is important is, for example, in the UK, I saw this statistic that 80% of the first aid rides are panic related. And with just using this technique, they could be treated at home and we could save 80% of the rides to the hospital because it can be
Hmm.
treated at home. Can you imagine just how a simple, like every breath takes like 15 seconds about. So if you do 4 times, it's a 1 minute breathing exercise. Now, let's say we're in a very stressful moment and we're hyperventilating. So you're breathing high in the chest and focusing on breathing in while you actually should be focusing on breathing out. And this is what you change. So let's mimic this. I'm in a high,
Hmm.
I keep on breathing. Then breathe in and hold. I'm deliberately breathing in through the mouth now because this is what happens when you are hyperventilating. Then breathe out. Then breathe in for about 4 counts through the nose. Here we go. Hold. 1, 2. Breathe out for 8. Let's do 2 more. In deep. Hold. Breathe out more. Slower. And one last time. Slower in. Hold. And breathe out longer. How do you feel?
The effect is instant. Tim,
Instant.
every series of breaths where I was even more, I was not in any stressful environment earlier on, but I do feel
Hmm.
the effect of in my body also, not only in my mind, but also in my body, the calmness or this. Yeah, it's. I think that's the best way to describe it. There is a calmness, and thank you for sharing this. It is powerful. When you were saying about the three different, types or kinds that breathwork could be used, and this is definitely the one that you can, I suppose, do also as a practice. But I think it has even more value when you do it in that moment.
Hmm.
My comment on this is that in order to from the stressful situation, from the stimulus, that whatever it is happening that is causing that panic inside you to come up, to you actually starting to do this practice, because once you start doing it, it will work. There is that moment of self-awareness and of being able to actually direct yourself to do the breathing. So I just
Hmm.
wanted to share that. I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
Well, this is what you're talking about, being aware of your breath through the day. And this is
Hmm.
what you get when you do 5 minutes of breath work. And like my signature breathing techniques are TT5 or simplified Tumo, but they're very similar. So let's talk about TT5. Um, one round takes 1 minute. It's basically breathing 5 times in and out, nose in, mouth out. Breath number 6, you breathe in and you hold for 10 seconds. And then you breathe out slowly. So we can do 2 rounds if you want to, just to show you what is happening. Because with the first technique, 4 to 8, we calm down at
Hmm.
command. So this is what you can use in the car when you're about to explode.
Hmm.
Opening your email box, having a stressful conversation. Nobody has to see this. You can do this without talking to a person. Now, what we do when we have a practice, we breathe 5 times deep in and out first, slightly activating adrenaline release. And then afterwards, you're actually calmer than before. And this is much like running. When you go for a run, your heartbeat goes up, but this is not a chronic
Hmm.
state. It's a temporary state. And after running, your heartbeat will be lower. So that is the same. By taking 5 deep breaths and then breathing in and holding for 10 seconds and breathing out slowly. So this is 1 round, takes 1 minute. So if we would do 2 rounds, it would take 2 minutes. And then afterwards, you can test yourself by seeing how slow you can breathe, but likely you feel much more composed. What I think what you meant to say before was you're more in the body. It's like you're less in the head. Get out of the head and be in the body. Like become more body
Hmm.
aware. And when we get to think a little bit less, we kind of have the tendency to have more positive thoughts. So let's do 2 rounds of this if you're okay with that. Now,
Yeah, let's do it.
first, the safety measures. Because with the podcast, people may be listening in the car. Taking deep breath and holding on the breath in can make you dizzy. When you're driving a car on the highway, this can be dangerous simply because you may have the sensation of losing it for a moment. So you cannot join if you're driving a car and not when you're lying in the bathtub for the same reason, right? So let's do 2 rounds just to see how this works because I love, I'm a very busy person. I'm traveling all over the world. I have 5 kids, so I love these short breathwork snippets. This is
Hmm.
what I'm doing every morning. I do 5 of these rounds, so 5 minutes, and then I do that 10 times. So before we went on this meeting, I was a little bit early just to check my connection. I'm doing 5 rounds of TT5, so I do that a lot. And this is what creates more breath awareness by doing some practice every morning. I would say before you eat or leave the house. So take one really slow breath, nose in, mouth out, just to prepare. Again, making your breath out longer than your breath in. Let's breathe nose in, mouth out, about 80% in and out. Here we go. Extra deep. Breathe out everything. Breathe in and hold. Hold it here. Shoulders are nice and low. 10 seconds. Another 5. And breathe out slowly. A bit dizzy is normal. Round 2. 5 deep breath. Extra deep. Everything out. And breathe in and hold. Again, 10 seconds. And breathe out everything. Tingly sensations, normal. A bit dizzy or lightheaded, all normal. Now take the slowest breath of your life. And make your breath out even slower. So, when you're in the back of the taxi, before you're about to get your phone out and start scrolling social media, do 5 or 10 rounds. Start with 2, extend to 5, maybe 10 rounds. No more waiting time.
Tim, tell us what actually happened in the body during this, because the effect. You asked me earlier, how do I feel, and the effect is similar, even deeper now. But what is happening internally when you do
so
this practice?
my promise was to give you energy yet calm you down at the same moment, right? So when we breathe deeper and faster than we need to, we activate our sympathetic nervous system. Now, I know the sympathetic nervous system is also, where our stress is. And if you're too stressed at a certain moment, you will get a burn out. We all know this. Yet, if you temporarily increase the pace of breathing and the intensity of breathing, so you breathe deeper than you need to and faster than you need to, which doesn't have to be extreme. Let me put emphasis on that. It doesn't have to be extreme. But we activate our sympathetic nervous system. So we release a little bit of adrenaline, noradrenaline, and things like that. What happens on the breath hold, and when we breathe out slower, we activate the parasympathetic. So you could see this as a very small interval training, like with running, sprinting, walking, increasing your running stamina, building your running muscles. And making you able to run faster and longer, right? What happens with this is that after 2 or 5 rounds of TT5, we have a much slower pace of breathing, which is enhancing our ability to calm down. So I think I said this last podcast that the key to happiness in 2 words is to slow down your breathing, right? Because stress doesn't make us happy, unwanted stress. And if we are able to slow down our breathing, that is equaling your stress management. So your ability to slow down your breathing equals your ability to manage stress. But by taking a few deeper breaths and add a breath hold, we are even calmer than we would just do with, for example, 4-8 or that first group of breathing exercise where you calm down immediately. So the idea that the sympathetic nervous system is bad is not true. If we put stress under control on our own body, for example, by doing sports, for example, by ending your shower cold, doing cold exposure, or using deep breathing breath hold techniques, we get to be calmer, yet with energy at the same time.
Just a quick pause. If you're finding this conversation inspiring and thinking, I want to learn more about how to use breathwork, then I highly recommend checking out Tim's Breathwork Instructor program. It's an 8-week in-depth experience with everything from science-backed techniques to practical business tips. And it's all taught with Tim's calm, empowering style. You can find the link in the show notes. Now let's carry on. Thank you. And I highlighted what you said that our ability to slow down our breathing equals our ability to manage stress. And I think it is it's very important to realize that. There is, thank you, Tim. And actually, there is something else that I wanted to discuss, a different element, shall we say, of the benefits that breathwork gives. You already talked about calming down or being energized or being more resilient in the moment. I wanted to ask you about another factor that is longevity. I read a comment you wrote somewhere about breathwork being a long-term health practice, and I like very much that idea rather than something that you go at a retreat and you do some sessions and then you come back. My question is, I've been reading specifically about longevity, and one of the best, let's say, indicators of longevity is the VO2 max, which is how the capacity of oxygen that our lungs can handle. So my question is, are there any particular breathwork practices that you recommend for increasing that capacity and therefore the probability to live longer?
Well, it has for sure to do with your ability to use your diaphragm and to breathe through the belly. Because if you use your lower ends of your lungs with every breath in, you take up twice as much oxygen. So that should have an effect on the VO2 ratio. And the funny thing is, I was talking to a doctor in Brazil. I'm just back from Brazil from giving workshops there and corporate sessions and a retreat, an instructor retreat. He was asking me this question too, and I'm very positive, but this is something I haven't tested yet. But that if you would test your VO2 before a 20-minute, say TT 35 rounds, and not TT5, what we just did, but TT 35 rounds, so more like a 20-30 minute breathing session, that afterwards our VO2 would be higher. So our ability to uptake oxygen is directly influenced by a breathwork practice. So if you do a daily breathwork practice, that should have an effect on your longevity. I want to add though that longevity is of course interesting, and we all want to have a long life. But what is more important for me is the quality of life. And I've been talking to many biohackers in the past, and there's so much focus on longevity. While I would say if you just increase the quality of your life, likely you will live longer too. But that is more important than being very old. Like I have the feeling I'm going to be 155 years old. I'm now 55. I have another 100 years to go. You know. So I'm very positive I will live long, but the quality of life, your amount of happiness, the ability to reduce stress is something that is like in the short term giving you the benefits that you may actually be looking for. And having a longer life is like the cream on the cake that happens automatically.
I remember the phrase I was reading about longevity, and I couldn't agree with you more that the quality of your life, especially when you are old, that really is the whole point. Rather than living for many, many decades and being, sick or
Exactly.
debilitated.
Yes.
So what I remember reading was that he was talking about aerobic exercise, but at the very end we're talking about the lungs and how we use our lungs, and also breathwork is a different way. But he was saying that this kind of exercise will make you live longer, but when you do strength exercise, that's make that extra time worth living, being able to do the things that you can. Anyway, I digressed. It was something that made sense to me, and I realized the importance of doing, working out the body
Exactly.
as well when we get older, along with our lungs.
So I'm not a doctor. So my recipe from not Dr. Tim is to do every day without failure 2 minutes of exercise, 5 minutes of breathing, and ending your shower cold 30 seconds. So it's not, like you hear sometimes breathwork instructors claim that all you do is breathing. I'm like, no, what about exercise? And the same breathwork instructor an hour later, yeah, I'm getting fat. I'm like, yeah, well, I get it. It's not all about breathing. For me, the breath work is the 80%. It's the missing link. It's like where we really make our lives better because exercise we know, but also ending your shower cold, only 30 seconds. It's so little. It doesn't even cost you any time. But if you do this every day, this is my holy trinity of the perfect morning routine. Everyday exercise, breath work, cold exposure. Keep it as little as you can, minimum 2 minutes, 5 minutes breath work. So that takes 7 minutes. And ending your shower cold is not costing you any time. But that minimum thing you do, you will see that after maybe a month of practicing something that little, you want to go to hot yoga. You like it. You go 4 times a week. You start running again. So more is better, of course, but stick to the minimum. And this is like the true change in your life.
Indeed, this comes back to what we were saying earlier, that these small things cascade little by little. One good habit brings about another good habit, and over time you have a completely different life than if you did not.
For example, if people have the tendency to overeat, do 2, maybe 5 rounds of TT5 that we just did. Spend 2 minutes breathing before you start dinner. If you're eating with the family, do it in the kitchen or something. Like if you want to hide it, that's fine. You just breathe a little bit less, or you make less sound. But you will notice you're calmer. You eat more quietly. You would likely not go over 80%, thus helping your body weight.
You now teach others to become breathwork instructors. So I wanted to ask you to tell us about this. Who is the person that might be interested in something like that?
But it's like 3 groups. Number 1 is I want to learn everything about breathing for my own personal development. This is also always why I do instructor programs. I want to learn more about
Yes.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is people that are a coach or a personal trainer or a GP or a doctor or things like that, that have clients already and want to implement, like, for example, what we just did. I've one doctor in
Mm-hmm.
Denmark. Everybody is doing 1 minute of 4 to 8 breathing before they start the doctor session. And it's very simple, but it works. And then the group number three are already breathwork instructors, cold exposure instructors, or want to be, and they come to my program basically because it's very much in depth. You know, I've developed my own techniques called TT. Tim's techniques, which is exercise, breathwork, cold exposure. And within the TT breathwork, there's like 6 techniques. However, in my program, I'm not only speaking and practicing my own techniques. This is something I want to take a step back from too. There's only one technique, the technique that I learned or that I developed, and that is helping all the people. It's just not true. For some people, lighter breath work, and for some people, more intense breath work may be the case. So you want to learn about the whole spectrum of breath work and not just one
Mm-hmm.
technique. So I think this is very important. I mean, I'm still doing pranayama, breath of fire, alternate nostril breathing. Sometimes I do Wim Hof, I do bioflow sessions or rebirthing. I Buteyko breathing through the day, oxygen advantage. So to be aware of the whole spectrum of breathwork is what makes you a good instructor. So you can really connect with the client and give what a person needs instead of that technique that you have learned. And that is the answer to
Mm-hmm.
everything. So I think that is an important part as well. It's not only my own techniques. I feel science is important. If you know what happens in your body, this is a bit of a paradox, but if you understand rationally what is happening in your body, for example, like your heartbeat goes up when you start breathing deeper and faster. Very
Mm-hmm.
simple. But
Mm-hmm.
when you understand what is happening, you can let go of that same rational mind and start to feel more. So the science behind cold exposure and breath work is important. Um, One of the things that I find important too, and this is really making my life better, is to have breathing exercises in public spaces. So, for example, in the London Underground, it's very noisy. You can make a bit of noise. But if you're in a taxi in the back in London, it's very silent. So you want to keep your voice down. But whether you use breath work for walking, for killing time, back of the taxi, behind your computer at work, during a Zoom session, breath work in public spaces is really, there's so much waiting time in a day that if you have like a palette of breathwork techniques that you can use in public spaces, then you're doing great. Um, Another thing that I'm teaching a lot in the corporate world, and I feel that this is where we're needed. Like to teach at the yoga school is fine, but if you teach in the corporate space, you can help more people. Plus, the side effect is that you make more money yourself. So, making a business out of it is part of what is on my agenda with every
Mm-hmm.
instructor program that I give, and also being able to teach in the corporate space. Then there are like very short sessions like we just did. Or, for example, if you want to be able to listen better, 4 counts in through the nose, 4 counts out through the nose. Just use it whenever you're listening. Use it now if you want. And then I think the last thing is that what I felt that was a problem in my life is as a breathwork instructor, I was living on my own island, and all my instructors, and there are over 100, are actively teaching all over the world. We have this
Mm-hmm.
community together, and when somebody is doing their first corporate session, I'm nervous, I'm getting paid good, this is my plan, what do you guys think? So everybody's helping each other out. So instead of living on your own island, we have a whole group, a whole community of breathwork instructors that
Yes.
is working together, assisting each other. It's just amazing. So I would say those are a few bullets of how I feel I can instruct the best breathwork, cold exposure, and light exercise instructors.
And I will add to that and wish you from my heart to keep on doing that and impacting the people that learn from you, as I have in the past.
Thank you.
And I want to wish you all the very best in doing this and being in your power and sharing with the world, your this beautiful knowledge and skills.
Thank you.
Tim, I don't have anything else to add. I really enjoyed the conversation. There were many things that we talked about, and I thought about another 20 things that I would like to talk about in perhaps in a third session at some point.
I will talk to you in a few years' time, right? We're going to do this again.
Hopefully not in many years.
Yeah.
But either way, I will for today. I will leave it to you for your parting wisdom to the listener of this conversation.
Okay, that would be: try to slow down your breathing as much as you can through the day, and know this, that when we get stressed, our breathing increases, but we can be ahead of that by being able to slow down our breathing. And this is maybe theoretically, but when we are able, if we would be able to always slow down our breathing, you would be able to always manage any kind of stress. And to really, be more breath aware, do 5 rounds of TT5 every morning. And then you will be slowing down your breathing through the day a lot more. So breathe slowly.
Thank you for listening to this conversation with Tim van der Vliet. I hope it has given you a fresh perspective on how small, consistent breathwork habits can reshape your health, mindset, and overall quality of life. If this episode sparked something in you, whether it is starting a daily breathwork practice or sharing breathwork with others, Tim's Breathwork Instructor program is a great next step. Whether you are a complete beginner or already working with clients, Tim's approach is clear, comprehensive, and grounded. I'm an affiliate for the program because I truly believe in it. Check the show notes for the link and explore how you can deepen your breathwork journey. Until next time, keep growing, keep showing up as your authentic self, stand out, don't fit in,